Did you notice how a little bit earlier, how Julie very diplomatically called you old? She had said, she didn't just say you'd been in the industry for a long time. She said you've been in the industry for a very long time. Welcome, everybody, to episode 419 of Beyond the Exchange. On our special series of episodes now that we are having with the executives, prestigious executives of prestigious firms, where we grill them on their knowledge of Renaissance art. So, Julie, what is your... No, we don't do that. But joined here, as always, by my esteemed colleague, boss, and father figure, Brian King. And Brian, if you want to introduce our guests for this month, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we are excited to have Julie Cooling joining us today. She is the founder and CEO of RIA Channel, also RIA Database, and is a big figure in the investing world, just from her connections and knowing all the different financial advisors. And obviously, we want to get into a little bit about your company and your background and that type of thing. But and I believe you are a graduate of Bucknell. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yes, that's right. So it is great to have you on the show with us today. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And a quick thing for those of our audience who don't know what RIA means, it's the Royal Institute of Astronomers.
Wow. That's it. So as registered investment advisor, actually,
right.
sorry. The other RIA, yes. But again, we're so glad to have you. So maybe take just a minute. Tell us a little bit about your background and what caused you to start RIA Channel and RIA Database.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. I've never done this before. This is my first podcast ever. And I have no prepared remarks. So we're just going to riff today. But
that's perfect. I will interject though. Normally you are on the other side of the microphone doing the interviewing of different people.
That's true.
I was one of those people who you have interviewed in the past as well.
Yes, that's right. I like interviewing other people, asking other people questions.
Julie, quick question. On a scale from 0 to 2, how unimpressive was Brian when you interviewed him?
Brian was the best interviewee ever.
So a 2.
I like that. That doesn't feel right, but okay, we'll go with it.
Well, it's fun. I mean, we're always learning about different businesses and advisory businesses, as well as asset management businesses, and then fintech firms. And so it's been a nice, fun journey working at RIA Channel. So I started out, my very first business job was an internship at Smith Barney in New York City. I worked on the taxable fixed income desk. And I was super green. And I'm going to admit this, I looked out the window. I was living in New Jersey. My stepdad worked at Smith Barney, got me an internship. You know, I took the easy route, I nepotism. And I knew nothing about New York City. And about halfway through the summer, I looked out the window and said, so what, is that a golf course? And it was Central Park. That's how green I was. I didn't know anything about the city. So yeah, I'm admitting that here now, but I learned a lot in that internship. And I actually stay in touch with the woman that hired me for that internship. She was
Cool.
Marketing way back when, and was...
Wow, I don't see Brian and I staying in touch more than a week or two after he lets me go from here.
Well, it could be sooner than later.
And then I graduated from Bucknell in '94. I worked at SEI. I didn't stay long, moved out to California, kind of knew that I needed to explore a bit, and went to work for Montgomery Asset Management. And
so quick question. How did you get an interview there? I mean, Montgomery was a hot ticket back in the day.
Bottom. I was, his assistant, which meant I did a little bit of everything on the desk, right? And you just kind of have to be willing to get paid absolutely nothing and work West Coast and East Coast hours. I had some really great opportunities at Montgomery to work on the S&A business. And I was used to sort of doing that, producing, right, executing and growing. And we weren't doing a lot of that yet at Forward Fund. So I went to Gordon and I pitched him on a project called Manager Direct, which was separately managed accounts online. I thought this is, the next iteration of separately managed accounts. But anyone that works in the SMA world knows that they're not products that are asked for or bought by the general public. And so that was a really bad idea. We also didn't have ETFs back then. That was pre-ETF world. And so it was also way too early. Basically, it was an early robo, and I was way too early. But I did spend a year there trying to build it. Gordon said yes, funded me. I was hired a technology team, and basically failed. My old CEO from Forward left. He came back. He called me. He said, "Hey, I know you're failing, and I know you lost all your money taking all these risks, and you've got licenses, and you've always pushed me to push you outside. I always wanted to be a wholesaler, and nobody would ever let me be a wholesaler. I was always like, the grinder inside, right?" So he said, I'll put you outside. And I was the worst wholesaler, like the worst wholesaler.
Why? What was it that made you not terrible at wholesaling?
I love the travel. I love the golf. I love the dinners. I love the spa. I love the people, but I didn't like representing investment strategies that I really didn't know a heck of a lot about. And I remember going into Merrill Lynch offices, and I'd buy lunch for the office, and the guys would come in, take the lunch, and walk right back out. It was humiliating. And I would take those box reports. We get these box reports from Merrill Lynch, and I'd analyze the box report, and I'd figure out like where we should be spending our time and doing all that kind of stuff. And then I was given this private fund to market to the RIAs. And I'd go to NAPFA, and I'd go meet with these different RIA offices, and I liked that better. But the light went off. That's when I went to my boss and I said, I have to start this again. And that boss was Alan Reed. He was the CEO of Forward Funds. He said, go for it. He's a client of mine today. And that's how I started RIA Database. That's a long answer to RIA Database.
That's great. No, it's a great answer.
Well, I love there's a lot of self-deprecating moments in there. And I think a lot of times people try to bury like the times where you didn't have success or, as you said, failed. But I think that always is, it's a great opportunity to be able to spring somebody forward and say, okay, well, this didn't work, but here's something that can work. And then look at RIA Database today, and it's pretty significant, right? So when did you actually launch RIA Database? What year would that have been?
That was
05?
Yes, 05. And my husband pushed me out the door. He's like, okay, are you launching that or what? Are you going to go do? I had bought the URL riadatabase.com, but I never thought I'd launch it under that name. I thought I'm going to come up with something creative, right? Something that a typical brand company would come up with. I mean, many times I hear my son or his friends or, people in general talking about businesses they want to start, and they start with the company name. They start with the colors and the branding and the flash, right?
True.
And I was in this, and normally that's, those two companies I mentioned before weren't the first things I tried. I tried consumer products. I tried all kinds of other things. And I always started with the business plan and the name and the colors and the look and the marketing plan. In this case, with RIA Database, I started with the product because I needed the product. And so it was really about how do I get all the data from all the SEC information. I actually went and met with the SEC because I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to get sued. And I went to the SEC and I said, okay, it says on this site of yours that I can actually resell this data. And they laughed at me, but they said, yes, you can. And I said, okay, great. And I can scrape it all. Yes. And so I did. I scraped all the data. I had my team in India. And then I launched with RIA Database because Schwab was coming up, the Impact Conference. And I'd been to Impact for many years prior to launching. I knew it was the biggest industry conference for RIAs. And I ran out of time. So I went out as RIA Database. I figured, I can change it later. And honestly, when I first launched it, I didn't think I didn't think I'd get into any of the other things that we've gotten into, which is marketing and distribution and webcasts and all of the interviews. And I mean, I had no idea that it would become what it's become. It was really one step at a time. Start with the RIA database, penetrate the market. I launched at NAPFA. NAPFA is an industry conference for fee-only advisors. And that's where I was selling right through those fee-only advisors because I was selling alternatives. And I knew the woman who ran the conference, and then I knew the board members because you want to know who kind of how the organization works. So I got to know the board members. And I said, it'd be really helpful if you could teach all of us salespeople how to not step on ourselves when we're marketing to your associate members, right? Because it's hard knocking on a door, introducing yourself, trying to pitch your product. And you don't want all you want to do is be accepted. So why don't you just tell us how to do that? So during the pre-conference event, I hosted a Q&A. And again, I didn't moderate. I hired a moderator. I introduced it. We ended up with 60 clients out of the gate from that first event. And it was basically this moderator interviewing the board members on how best to market through the organization. It was a home run, and it kind of kicked us off to do other events like that. We did one at Schwab, we did one at TD, and that was sort of guerrilla marketing. And then our clients were asking us to do email campaigns, and I was like, I don't want to be a spammer. Nobody reads emails. I'm not really an advertising kind of person, but I did know as a wholesaler that no one wanted to hear from me. They only wanted to ever hear from the investment strategy guys, right? The CEOs.
And they did want the meals that you brought into the office.
Dude, the gift cards, right? Now the largest RIA Channel is the largest provider of investment webcasts in the industry. We do 250 live events a year, which is crazy.
That is.
And you create educational content for many of the biggest fund managers out there as well, correct?
Yes. And learning management systems, that's been our latest and newest thing is, building educational programming. I hired somebody from Kaya that leads the education there. And we built Apollo Academy, and we built the Candriam Academy for New York Life. We launched our own private markets playbook, and we're working on 2 very large universities, digital universities right now. And again, it's back to one thing leads to another. I had no idea that would happen. Oh, but I have to tell you how we got there, just because this goes back to something not business related, which, I realize like how little hobbies I have. But my son was playing soccer in Barcelona. He was 14 years old. He was in a program called Togo Academy, which is the part of the Cruyff Institute. So Johan Cruyff is a legendary soccer player, and his family started something called Togo Institute. And that was the first learning management system we built. I said to Todd, you can't run up and down that field all day. You're older than I am. Like, you're gonna, burn out. You need to leverage your time and build a coaching course that's digital. So that's what we did, and we launched Togo Institute with Todd, and that was a passion project. No dollars passed either way, but it allowed us. I brought my video team to Sitges, which is just south. It's a beach town south of Barcelona, and we did.
Wait, it's a beach town called Sitges.
Sitges.
That rhymes with beaches. Anyone else notice that?
Right.
That's just me.
That's right. And we brought drones, and it's a bunch of kids and a bunch of coaches playing on the beach, playing in the streets, playing in the parking lot of the chapel. And, it's total soccer, Tobo. It means total soccer, which is the Cruyff way. And it's all about, everything. It's holistic, right? So nutrition and sleep and mindfulness and journaling and skills, effort, and the rest of it. But it was quite a program. So we were very.
Is a big part of it flopping and then rolling around on the field like you're hurt when you're not?
Yes.
It is funny. Though, like I did not grow up in the soccer world, but I was immersed into it because for some reason, so we live in Overland Park, Kansas. For some reason, Overland Park is like the mecca of soccer for the Midwest. Not sure why, but it is. There are soccer fields everywhere. And I think it's like a rite of passage for every 5-year-old that they have to be playing soccer. And so we followed suit, and both of our girls played soccer as kids. And so again, we were fully immersed into the soccer world. And but both my girls played for many years, and then they both also started playing volleyball. And then but my oldest, Sienna, decided, I hate being outside. It's too hot and it's too cold. It's, depending on the season, it's too extreme, one or the other. And so she's like, I'm going to do volleyball. And so she basically stopped doing soccer so she could focus exclusively on volleyball. To your point, though, of how many kids, like they think very differently. Because Sienna switched to volleyball, Sydney's like, I'm dropping volleyball and I'm going to focus on soccer, so that they could each have their own thing. So my youngest is a soccer player in college now, and then Sienna plays volleyball in college. But the funny thing is, the one who quit playing soccer because of the heat,
Right.
and the cold, is now a beach volleyball player.
Oh, wow.
And so the season starts when she plays beach volleyball. So we actually call it sand volleyball because there's no beaches in the Midwest. But she plays in the St. Louis area at a school called Lindenwood. And but when they start their season, it's like February in the Midwest. And so they're playing outdoors in sometimes sub-freezing temperatures.
Sand's got to be like playing on rock.
It's awful. It is so bad. And then you're hitting in the cold. It's pretty crazy.
It reminds me of like the Hallmark Christmas movies that they make because they take place during Christmas, but to get them out for Christmas, they have to film them in the summer.
That's right.
Wherever they
That's
are.
right.
And so they're filming Christmas movies, wrapped in
Yes.
earmuffs and all the scarves and everything, and it's like 82 degrees out.
Well, famously, we're in. I don't know if you happened to see that there was a Hallmark movie that was just released. It was about the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, we're in Kansas City, so it was a big deal here. But to your point, they filmed it in July, and everybody, it was like 100 degrees outside, and everybody's wearing coats, having to act like they're cold.
Right.
But in fact, it was very hot.
But that's great for your daughters. It builds character and grit for sure.
It does. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Physical discomfort breeds mental toughness, I say.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Is that a saying there? Or is that a Jeremy?
No, I made it up.
You're so smart.
Well, I didn't want to brag.
So let me ask
But
about your podcast, if I can. Can I ask about this podcast?
Sure,
Please.
sure.
So this is
See what she did there? She's an interviewer.
Right.
She's turning the table.
She's good.
I like this. You're really good.
I like that you're doing this because you really get to know your partners, right? And your colleagues, the people that you're going to be working with. And it's so important that you really kind of learn what drives people, right? So you understand what's motivating them when you're partnering. What the goal of this podcast obviously is, it's wonderful for the industry to get to know everyone, but are you also interviewing, can we talk just a little bit about your business and what you're doing?
Sure.
And sort of how the podcast fits in. Will you be interviewing all of the managers and maybe all of the partners that you have for Lodas?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So for us, a big piece of why we started the podcast was because we do put out a lot of content, and a lot of the content we put out is very promotional, it's educational, and that type of thing. And so for us, we are so many times doing deep dives into the business so much. We thought it would be a great way to be able to say, hey, here's the faces of the people that are behind these organizations that we work with. And so many times you're only seeing the business side of somebody. And I love the opportunity to be able to see the personal side of the people behind that are leading those businesses. And so that was the genesis of it. So we did our first handful of episodes that we did. It was just Jeremy and I that we were able to show, and we'd find random topics to talk about. But then the goal is to be able to continually add new executives, leaders in the industry, and be able to kind of just have longer form conversation, but keep it relatively tight so that it's not too long. But yeah, that's kind of the genesis of it.
And so I would call
Really
Beyond the
cool.
Exchange.
Yeah, I think it's really cool because you get to know you both, what's on your mind, how you react to things, your motivations, right? Like you've been in this industry a really long time, so it's like what's driving you. And I love this industry because it's a cottage industry. It's still a cottage industry, right? Like
Right.
who
Yeah.
am I? And I could start this company, and 18 years later, I'm still running this company and making a living for everyone that works here, right? Like and making a living.
Who are you?
Fine.
You're the president.
Oh yeah, I'm just the president. I'm not the CEO. I have new cards that say CEO, but yeah, it's just. I think that I think it's really important in the RIA business to be independent. Registered investment advisor. By nature, you're independent. However, the industry's changing with a lot of this outside money coming in, piling in, and the motivations are different. But here you guys started Lodas, and you came from one thing led to another, and now you're putting all those connections together and seeing what the opportunity is and making it better, not because somebody handed you a chunk of money and said, okay, what's the best opportunity, and go chase that. It's really out of your own deep desire to build something special, which I think is awesome. That's kind of how it should be. And those are the best businesses,
organic.
I think.
No, absolutely. Did you notice how a little bit earlier, how Julie very diplomatically called you old? She had said, she didn't just say you'd been in the industry for a long time. She said you've been in the industry for a very long time.
It's worth noting though that Jeremy is older than I am, so it is worth noting.
It is worth noting. I'm glad you brought
5
that
months
up.
or something like that. But you're absolutely right though. I think, and you said the word cottage industry. What I think is fascinating is the beginning of my career. I was in the stock exchange world, and then I kind of migrated towards still in the exchange world, but to the ETF world, and built that ecosystem for the company the exchange that I was at, and then moved to the New York Stock Exchange. But I kept going into different arenas, and then now we're in the alternative investment world. But yet there's still overlap to the people that I have worked with in the past and the people that I've worked with. Because again, Julie, you and I first met when I was kind of wearing my ETF hat and doing things in that world. And then now we're doing alternatives, and you're in that world again. So, but it is, you see a lot of the same faces, and each person is trying to evolve the ecosystem in a different way.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting.
It is.
I love what you guys are doing. I'm excited to be a part of it.
That's great. Well, most important question of the podcast: do you like my haircut?
I do like your hair.
Thank you. I got to cut this weekend. That's excellent.
It looks exactly the same as it did
Before I got it cut.
before Thanksgiving. I don't read. Well, these are supposed to be timeless episodes, so I guess I just gave it away. We just had Thanksgiving.
That's we ruined it. Well, now it's a special Thanksgiving episode.
It is.
Of Beyond the
I
Exchange.
do want to ask you, so off business topic as well. Do you have any? We are heading into the holiday season, Christmas season. Do you have any like holiday traditions?
I love that question.
Jeremy loves. He's a big Christmas fan, but do you have any Christmas traditions or holiday traditions?
Oh goodness, holiday traditions. I mean, can't think of anything that's all that different from what everyone else does. Oh, sadly, I'm caught. I wish that I had something creative to do.
I'll say mine, and it might spur something.
Okay.
And you could start a new tradition every time your kids come home from like winter break. Ask your daughter why she didn't go into soccer, because it makes you so sad. Just something to consider. Just something. Every family has their own traditions. Just something to consider.
Yeah.
But I love from October 1st to January 1st, my favorite time of the year. The best time of the year. Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and my birthday. But Christmas, every December, I have about 10 or 11 different Christmas movies that I watch. every single December. There's, Christmas Story, Christmas Carol, It's a Wonderful Life, Love Actually, Scrooged.
I don't think I've ever seen Scrooged.
Really? With Bill Murray?
Yeah.
Julie, have you seen Scrooged?
I have not.
It would have been 30 years ago.
But I have a funny story. My husband made me go watch Bad Santa. I was pregnant. I went into labor watching Bad Santa.
Is that what?
My son was born on December 4th, 2003.
Now, was it a coincidence or was it so funny
So
that
bad
it sent you
that
into
I
labor?
went into labor.
Oh, so bad.
Bad Santa is a bad movie. So
That's with Billy Bob Thornton, right?
It was so bad. I think we left halfway through. I had to go to the hospital in labor.
Oh my God! Is that one with Billy Bob Thornton?
Oh, yeah,
Bad
that's
Santa?
it, Billy
Am I
Bob.
remember it correctly? Yeah.
There you go.
There you
That's
go.
funny.
Yeah, I remember. I never saw it, but which is good because
Yes.
then it seems I would have gone into labor. But but yeah, I did not hear.
We like all the traditionals. It's our families are. We're not. I live in Philadelphia right now. I'm not from Philadelphia, so we travel most of the time for the holidays. And right now,
Where's your husband from?
oh, my husband grew up in Buffalo, New York,
Oh, okay.
and I grew up in Massachusetts and New Jersey, and now we live in Philadelphia.
Wow. So what is because you've lived in New Jersey, Massachusetts, Philadelphia, San Francisco. What's the favorite place you've ever lived?
Probably North Carolina. We were there for 18 years, and I loved it. And
Oh.
my parents are still there, and maybe
And is that why your daughter went to Wake Forest?
probably I took her everywhere. My husband brought her up and down the West Coast. I took her to Colorado. Went to every college in Colorado. Went all over the Northeast, and then we pulled into North Carolina, and she said, "This is home." So she decided to do it for us.
Yeah. Was she raised her whole life or most of her life in North Carolina?
Yes, she was born in Charlotte.
Yeah. I have to say, I don't think that was very cool of your daughter to have you go all over the country, visit all these cities all over. She goes, you know what? I just want to go to the place right here over the hill.
That's right.
Just, the one we can see from our house. That's where I want to go.
Yes. Well, these days you just don't know where you're going to get in, right? And she was very lucky. Wake is highly in demand right now. It's beautiful.
It's a good school.
Right.
Like the same architect that built Bucknell. It looks very similar.
Oh, really?
It's like the Bucknell of the South, we call it. And the wonderful new business school, but she's studying science, and maybe she'll do a little bit of both. And they just won. Wake just made it into the next. She was at the game yesterday. Back to soccer. They're in the NCAA tournament, and they are in the semifinals in the next round.
Oh.
So it was exciting.
Oh, wow.
That's
great.
awesome.
Yeah. What branch of science is she studying or want to, like biology or chemistry?
Molecular biology and chemistry.
Wow.
So maybe
Not bad.
in the year, or not fintech, sorry, biotech in the future, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
She's still so young.
Okay. Well, Boston's a good biotech market, so she could go back to where you're from,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
from Massachusetts.
Yeah, we'll see. She's kind of exploring. She's still so young, so try not to pressure her. Somebody said to me, I always thought, oh, maybe one of my kids will take over the business someday. And then one of my clients said, why would you do that to them? I never thought of it that way. And I thought, oh, that's a good point. That's really not fair. And so I shouldn't do that. And so I don't talk about the business much with them, except my son wanted to intern with me for the first time. So he did. And the second 5 minutes into the internship, he told me I should sell the company. He said, Mom, AI is going to take over everything that you do. He's probably right. I better get out.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Julie, we thank you so much for spending some time with us. It was great being able to hear your story and be able to learn about your family. You sound like you're an incredibly proud mother and incredibly proud of the business that you've built. And so thank you again for joining us and sharing some of your time with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. Good luck to you.
Absolutely. Great to meet you.